Chuckie Lawrence. What up, dude?
Hey, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I want to talk. You made a post yesterday about the barbecue, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you were just talking you were talking about men, like Saginaw men, and you said, I'm gonna pull it up here because it's worth quoting you accurately. Where's Chuckie Lawrence? There he is, posting every single day. Love it. There he is, live in the car. You posted about barbecue yesterday, and I will greet all men with, "How are you, King?"
Yes.
Great men will speak and engage. Bring your sons, nephews, cousins, definitely the dads. This is going to make our queens and community proud. Can we talk about the great Saginaw men?
Yes. And I think it's a conversation that needs to be had on a constant basis, because I don't think a lot of times that we pay attention to the positives as much as we do the negatives. And we do have a lot of great men doing things in the city of Saginaw. We do have a lot of great business owners. We have a lot of great politicians. You know, we're in so many different forms within our community, and I just don't think that we recognize or praise, you know, or get recognition or praise one another enough. You know, and I think that if we start doing that, it'll change probably our immediate mindset when we're passing each other in the grocery store or whatever, because we have so much of an identity crisis because nobody's really telling us who we are. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times, you know, you couple that with gaps in our community, things that have happened in the home and things of that nature. You already got a guy that's questioning his value and, you know, where's my place in life and that type of thing. And then when this person makes these great efforts, when this person accomplishes these great things, you know, I think that a handshake, a pat on the back, or, you know what I'm saying, a verbal recognition like "good job," you know, is necessary. And when I said that yesterday, I feel like there's so much power in words, and so many positive ways that we could greet one another and reaffirm one another. And I think that instead of addressing each other with the N word, whether we think it's a term, using it for a term of endearment, but it's not. I think King, you know, gives us a different type of look, you know, in conversation as well as to ourselves.
Yeah. Something that you said was about, like, we might be struggling about not really knowing who we are.
Yes. And
how affirming somebody else can help them figure that out.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Oh, this is who you are. I see you. And I ran across this saying. It's a saying in South Africa. There's a concept called Ubuntu. And what it ends up being translated to is, I am because you are because we are.
That's nice.
And I think what you're saying is speaking to that so well, is that, like, we know who we are based on how other people see us, mm-hmm. or our relationships with them, and we figure that out based on our interactions with each other, because that tells us something about how we are seen. And I think to your point is when we start affirming how great somebody is, mm-hmm. or how great they can be, mm-hmm. or what they're doing for other people. And when we, like, I see that, I see you, you're worthwhile.
Yes,
you know,
sir.
How are you doing today, King? It kind of says, like, oh,
yes,
like, oh, this is who I am.
Yes.
Like, somebody is proud of me. And especially speaking from like a male viewpoint, I think there are few things in this world that can be more motivating than somebody saying, I'm proud of you.
Yep, and
I love that.
And it is that simple. And our culture has adapted the idea that, you know, the mean face, the tough exterior, you know, and the quickness to disengage or distance ourselves from one another is the right way of handling things. But I think that I just feel, this is just for me, I feel like if I have a different, more positive impression of a person, I can't be given a negative impression. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because I'm steadfast with that I know that guy or I know that person and I know him or he or she to be this type of person. And I think it stops a lot of the negativity, the negative outlook, as well as the conversation. So I just felt yesterday I was just like, well, you know what? It's time to change the conversation. And as I told you before, I feel like if we change our conversation, we're going to change the mindset. If we change our mindset, we can change our community.
Yeah. And we were talking about something before you started recording. I'm doing a speech in Missouri next week.
Yes, sir.
And one of the lines, and it's amazing that you're saying this because it's like the core concept in this keynote is that if we want to change our community, we have to change our conversations.
Yep.
Communities, when you distill it down to its most basic form, it's how one person is communicating with another person.
All the time.
Communities are created not with bricks and roads and businesses and things like that. They're created out of words. Words have power. Words have meaning. What words are used, how they are said, how we communicate means everything.
Yes, it does.
It means everything. And I think with social media and how often like we make comments and likes and things, I think it makes our communication feel like it's superficial, or we don't really have to worry about tone or because like this is the issue and this is what I believe and you should just like, no, that's not how people work. That's not how great communities are built. It's approaching each other with respect, with good communication, asking good questions, listening harder than you ever thought you could
Right.
every single time. And like communities are based on words. And if we want to change our community, we have to change our conversation. And you're saying that.
Yep.
Something that I love about the conversation, that the way that you're trying to change the conversations in Saginaw is every single morning I wake up and I'm like, man, I wake up at 3:34 in the morning, like I'm ready to seize the day, and I open up Facebook and there's Chuckie Lawrence on Facebook Live pouring into people like, we can do it, I believe in you. You're making posts like, Saginaw men, good morning kings, we're doing this barbecue, like we've got to do this better, we got to do this better, like we can do it, Saginaw. What would you say? I love that stuff, but what would you say to somebody who's like, Chuckie, you can't just be this positive all the time. You gotta. There's so many negative things happening, and like here comes Chuckie Lawrence riding the horse of like we gotta talk well and we gotta be positive. What would you say to somebody who's like, positivity, your message is not the way to go. That's not how we improve things.
Well, the only thing that I could tell anybody is, my conversation may not be for you. It may not be for you at this time. But what people have to understand from me is a lot of my positive conversations come from the negative choices, the bad choices, and the consequences that I've suffered for those choices. And I think that the only way that, to lead by example is to talk about what you've done and why why you're the way that you are now. And so I talk a lot of positives because I was such a wounded young man for so long and angry at the world, and everything was quick to conflict, and and if a person didn't like me, I had that I don't give a blank attitude. But as I grew up, as I really learned to know who I am and actually love who I am, it changed my mindset, and I started to look at my actions and my conversation and be like, wow, I used to act like that. I used to talk like that. You know what I'm saying? So I can't and won't be drawn back into what I know, because everything about me prior to my wanting to change, I know the consequences. I suffer the ramifications of those choices, those conversations. And I tell people all the time that the majority of all conflict can be resolved if you move from negative conversation to positive conversation. And so I can't go back that way because I already know where that led me. I already knew I know the consequences. So now if a person does not like to hear positivity, that may just be a person who right now gravitates to, entertains, and appreciates negativity. So my conversation might not suit you.
Do you want to fly to Missouri and give this keynote for me? Because like I also talk about changing a conversation from one of retribution to one of reconciliation.
Yes.
So many of the interactions that we have in our communities is like, who is to blame for this?
Yep.
How can I get revenge? How
Yes.
can I make it known that this person is incompetent, or this is not being done right, or what is being done wrong? And this really kind of like I'm gonna use the word gross, like it's very like an angry
It is.
thing. But we can change the conversation.
Yeah.
We can talk about the same topic, but we can talk about it in a way that creates reconciliation, that moves the issue forward, rather than saying who was to blame for this and focusing on that. We can acknowledge that there are challenges, that there are negative things, that there are issues that we have to address. Not saying we have to pretend like they don't, and that's where positivity becomes gross. If you want to use toxic positivity, you can. I don't use that phrase, but that's pretty much what it is. It's where you ignore the experiences of other people that aren't as good. You pretend like these issues aren't issues, but that's bad.
Yes.
But we can talk about negative things in positive ways, and that to me is how you solve these things.
Yep.
I love what you said. Like maybe these conversation or my message isn't for you yet.
Yep.
And I think that's such a brilliant way of acknowledging that in a community, there's so many different people with so many different experiences at different stages. All of these things. You're not coming out and saying you're wrong. You're full of it. Like you're not saying like you're not right. You're saying, well, maybe my message isn't for you, and maybe it isn't for you yet.
Right.
And I love that.
Well, it's something, again, it comes from my learning experiences, because there was a time that, I listened to the gangster rap, played in my mind, words. I listened to the outside negative influences from the people around me. My conversation now wouldn't have been what I wanted to hear when I was that person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like with everything, sometimes it's really about timing. It doesn't mean that the message is going to change. It might just mean that a person may double back a week from now, a month, or a year from now, and and hopefully they're not in a situation where now you have to accept the words, because you're in such a sometimes, like when we were younger, we get in trouble, and when we got in trouble, we'd be thinking, man, I should have listened to my mom, or maybe I should have listened to my girlfriend. But now we're already in trouble, and now we got to work ourselves out of that trouble, and then apply those words that had already been spoken. But for me, I can admit that there was a time when positive words weren't what I wanted to hear.
Right.
But I do tell everybody, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, that our reconciliation to one another can change this community. It can quell this violence. It can, we won't be crying over the caskets of our young black men. We won't be going and putting our hand to the glass in the jails and prisons. You know what I'm saying? Because these differences have been reconciled. So what we got to do now is we got to change the tough conversation into, an idea of reconciliation, conflict resolution, and those type of things. And get away from teaching our kids and setting our kids up, our young men up for failure by furthering these images that that social media and this rap music wants us to stay rooted in. That's the reason why at the kickball game and the barbecue, you're not going to hear that kind of music. You know why? Because people have to understand that music sets moods. Music sets moods. I mean, jazz music sets a certain type of mood. You could hear some Isley Brothers, and that's a whole nother mood.
Yeah, there's a reason why the music at the beginning of Sidewalk Talks is the way that it is. It's like you want a chill vibe, like it's a couple of people just hanging out on the sidewalk.
Exactly.
It has an effect on our emotions and our thinking and our experience.
Yep.
Something that you're saying, you use the word failure, and you referenced like you growing up and some of the situations that you're in. Jimmy Green, I interviewed him this morning, and one of the ideas
That's my guy.
yeah, you're my guy. one of the ideas that he talked about was that failure shows you the truth.
Yep.
You've been open about your experiences growing up. You were incarcerated at one point.
Yes, sir.
How did that make your life better?
Well, I'll be honest with you.
What was the lesson that you learned? Like, I want to get into your brain. I want to get into Chuckie's brain.
The lesson that it taught me was, I love myself more than this, because you're there. Everything around you, those walls, what you see take place, the treatment that you receive, the quality of food that you have to eat, the fact that you're without free choice anymore. I can't open the refrigerator 10 times in one day expecting to see something there now that I didn't even put there, but I'm gonna imagine that there's something there now that might.
I can't doom scroll Netflix. Yeah,
I cannot.
Yeah.
And so what it taught me was I didn't want my life to be being incarcerated, caged like an animal, told what to do, when to get up and go to bed every day. I didn't like the idea that now I'm forced to take rules instead of just choosing to make good choices, and I rule my choices. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I learned that being incarcerated, I had to change the way I thought of myself and the things that I wanted to do, the things I wanted to achieve, because I knew I wasn't going back.
It's interesting that it sounds like to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or if you want to riff on this, that the biggest lesson that you learned was to appreciate freedom, to appreciate choice. And I think it's kind of a lesson to me, because like we even like take for granted arguing with your wife where you're gonna go to dinner that day.
Who does that?
Yeah, who does that? Is that a really thing? Like even that, like
simple.
It's a simple, like that's a gift.
Yep.
Like the fact that you are in a position to argue with your wife every single day about what we're gonna do about dinner, like that is a gift.
Yes, it is.
And I think the truth, like finding the truth in failure, is when that is taken away from you.
Yes. Now
you can say, oh, like what a gift that would be.
Yes.
What a gift it would be to wake up and say, like, what do you want for dinner today? And like, I don't know. And I feel that like even that frustration is a gift. Like the fact that you are having that experience, and you don't know that until you get that taken away from you. Like, oh, this is what I'm missing. Like life is so much more beautiful than what I think.
Yeah. And for me to just further expound on that,
please.
just a little bit,
please.
Just walking single file line, to chow, laying on your bunk and being counted. It just blew my mind, and I'll share a real quick story that was a definite revelation for me. As you drop your security level, they offer you something called gate pass, and that's your opportunity to put on your regular clothes and be afforded the opportunity to go out into the public. Where where now you're riding down the city streets, and you're going to a place where you're interacting with people who this is just their everyday job. And mine was the animal shelter. So what we would do in the morning is we would come in, and we would take this metal cup and we'd run it along the bars and wake the dogs up. Now, watch this. It used to choke me up, but anyway, we wake the dogs up. There were these big hoses that we took, and we walked right down the hallway that divided the cages, and we sprayed water in. We sprayed the cells down and all that kind of thing. We then turned around and we came down the line, and we would give them a bowl of food and water. If you had a more unruly dog, then if you and I were working together, you would take the apparatus, push the dog to the back of the cell, and then we'd push the food in. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The more unruly dogs couldn't go out to play. But after they ate and everything, you pull the chute up, they go outside and they run around and they play. And you stand outside, you make sure that that they're not fighting. You make sure that they don't jump the fence, and whatever. And then you bring them back in, you feed them one more time, you spray their cells down, you turn the lights out, and you go home, and you come back the next day and do it again. And one day, Phil, it dawned on me, I'm governing over these dogs the way the officers did us every day in incarceration. And I said to myself, although I love my dogs, I love Rottweilers, I love, pit bulls and that type of thing.
No offense, dogs.
No offense. You know what I'm saying? I'm a puppy lover. But to have myself as a human being compare the way I was living to the animals, you know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, I don't want anybody to take offense to me saying that animals don't have value, because I love dogs. But when I look at it and I just compared it and I say, wow, this is the same way that officers govern over us on a daily basis. And it kind of made me put it into perspective as to where the value of freedom of choice, freedom of coming and going, freedom of the small things, like you said, arguing with your wife about what's for dinner. It took on a whole different meaning. But I did realize I was in that position because I didn't know me. I didn't love me the right way. So I didn't care about the consequences of the choices I was making, and I had to grow up from that. And that's what it did for me.
It's a beautiful story. And I think, like, this experience, it was a mirror. It was a mirror that you held up that showed you what your experience was. Like,
yes.
And I think if you take it a step further, like, those dogs are there not by their choice, not by their decisions, not like they didn't do something that got them into trouble and now they are at this shelter. Like, that was imposed on it was somebody else's decision. They screwed up, whatever. And now those dogs are essentially victims. But in your situation, you keep coming back to, like, I was in prison because of the choices I made.
Yes, sir.
It was the decisions I made. It was the mistakes that I made that put myself there. And I need to love myself more than this.
Yep.
I love this. Oh, like, one of the questions I was going to ask you was how you are so intense all the time. Like, you are the absolute most intense dude I know. And I know a lot of people, and you are at the top of the list, because, like, you come out of your car and, like, I'm setting up my stuff and we already ripping into this conversation and you are always on fire and full of energy. And, like, the lessons that you learned from that experience being incarcerated, is that what sets you on fire for this life that you have now?
Pretty much. There are a couple of different things that do it for me. One, I always want to do my best now. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, I might be seen as an overachiever. I've heard people, have said, oh, you do too much, but I do it now because I don't feel like I spent so much of my life not doing enough. I spent so much of my life, throwing chance to the wind. I spent so much of my life not achieving, not going after what I feel now is my true potential, and setting goals, to make my wife, my grandchildren, and unfortunately, my mom is gone now, to make my mom proud. It keeps me wanting to make sure that I also stay focused. I stay committed to what I say I want to do. Before I wanted a reputation. Now I seek a legacy.
You are doing a lot. One of the things that you're doing, Brobecue.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about the Brobecue. When is it? Where is it? What is it? Who is it for?
Okay, who's it for? It's for all men, and especially our black male identity. It's an opportunity for us to come together as black men, shake hands, hug on one another, be vulnerable, have good conversation, eat together, fellowship together, because again, we could go back to social media. Social media in this music doesn't talk about us coming together. It doesn't talk about us loving on each other. It doesn't talk about conflict resolution. It actually talks about everything absolutely opposite. And when you look at it, those are the things that need to be. We need to have more men that's strong enough to stand in opposition of that, because I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of young men that want to walk away from that street life, the getting in trouble, the angry, the fighting and all that kind of stuff. But then a lot of us gravitate to that, first of all, because we're looking for acceptance. So, if we step away, who's over here to give us that comfort, that love, that shoulder, that pat on the back, that camaraderie, you know what I'm saying? So I think things like what I want the barbecue to stand for is an example of putting ourselves out there to our young black men and saying, hey, you don't got to go that way, man. You know what I'm saying? You can come right over here where there's love, there's positivity, you know what I'm saying? There's interaction, you know what I'm saying? But there's structure and accountability also.
I want to talk to my fellow men from my experience is like grew up, went to school, changed jobs a bunch of times. Like life got really, really intense, and it has been intense for a really long time. Like constantly working, trying to make things happen. Then you have a family, and like now there's absolutely no time in the day, and now there's so much to do and so many people to take care of, and you kind of get swept away in life, and you really start to struggle internally because you feel like there are relationships that you are not nurturing that you should.
Right.
And relationships that you don't have that you're missing something, but you don't quite know that it's that. And recently over the past couple of years, and I'm still working on this, is I have rediscovered the necessity of male friendship.
Yes.
And like being friends, like having a friend, saying like, shout out to Wayne Hoffman. Like he texts me very frequently like, hey, you want to come sit on the porch and chat?
That's dope.
And the Phil from 5 years ago or so would have been like, yeah, like cool, I'll let you know. And then I would have ghosted you. And then you would have texted me 6 months from now and like, hey, and I'm like, okay, I'll let you know. And I would have ghosted you again. But what like that experience taught me was how important that moment is. Right. How important it is, men, to have another man that you can talk to. I was just working in a city in Michigan, and I was sitting at a coffee shop on my laptop, and this man, probably 60 years old, comes walking in, orders a coffee, sits down on a couch. And then two other men come in, order a coffee, and they go to these couches, and they're all hugging, handshaking, things like that. Another two men come in, another man comes in. And all of these men, around similar ages, are all sitting in this circle in this coffee shop. And just having a conversation. Some of it was awkward. Like some of it you could tell some of the men like were trying to figure out how to be social and how to have this conversation and what to contribute and things like that. But to me that was also like a beautiful part of it, because it was like these men acknowledging that this was important. Mm-hmm. This was important enough to have every Friday at 8 a.m. in the morning for the group of the six of us to get some coffee, shoot the shit, talk about things, make jokes, and then slap each other on the back and say, see you next week, see you on Friday. Yep. Like men, if you are struggling, if you are feeling lonely, if you are feeling isolated, if you are struggling with depression, like if you're doing all of these things, I'm just speaking from my experience, one of the most powerful things that you can do is to find that connection with another man.
Yep.
Text message, call, email, chat, something. Like reach out, and that relationship will nourish you in a way that you need.
Yep. And to speak in reference to that, the only reason why we don't have that anymore, we used to have that. I remember, the friendships, and I still have friendships that I have had since I was 10 and 12 years old, the Ben Mathis and the Chris Murrays and these guys that and and not only did we come together and fellowship with each other and have a good time, these were the guys that were like big brothers that would check me when I was wrong though too. And we don't have that anymore. Checking a person's bad behavior now leads to a conflict between those two people, because we've gotten away from the value of friendship. We've gotten away from the value of just I guess leadership, as well as reverence to those who we should look to lead, look for leadership from. And now is you can't say nothing to me, and I'm about this, and I know I'm grown, I'm 10 toes down, and all these destructive ideologies that we put in our mind that go right out of the window when we're laying in a hospital bed fighting for our lives, or we're in the courtrooms looking at a charge that could lead to life imprisonment and whatever. All that goes out of the window. So what I would like to do, Phil, is get out in front of our young black men before they have to go those routes, before somebody has to visit them, whether they're fighting for their lives, or whether somebody's unfortunately coming to view the body and confirm a person's identity, or before you see somebody sentenced and walked out of the courtroom for the rest of their lives and that type of thing. I'd like to be the type of person to say, hey, you can talk to me about it and be comfortable with, if you don't have nobody else in your corner and you want to walk away from that lifestyle, saying, here, I got a bunch of good men over here that will walk with you, encourage you, fellowship with you, interact with you, and help you. You know what I mean? From people that have opportunities for employment. It's just a lot of different things that come from that. And so the barbecue is going to be that day on the July 26th at Pastor Tatum's church on 7th and James from 11. We're gonna go. I think we're going from 11 to 6. We're gonna do everything out there, from eat together, friendly competition in 3-on-3 basketball for our young men, cornhole, and then just standing around shooting the breeze, shaking hands with each other. You know what I'm saying? Just saying hi to each other. That's one thing that we're demanding on that day. Everybody speaks to one another, and because I learned I was taking a psych class, and the professor said, 9 times out of 10, it's been a study that if you just speak to a person 3 times, meaning if we pass each other 3 times, because we end up in some of the same social interactions, and we speak to each other, we will 9 times out of 10 think that person is a cool person. So I tell everybody, when you make eye contact with the person, speak. Just say hi, nod your head. You're acknowledging a person. When you acknowledge a person, you validate a person by acknowledging them.
Yep.
And that's what we want to do out there the day of the barbecue.
I love it. Barbecue, July 26th.
July 26th.
If you're on Facebook, people that are watching this, listening to this, go to Facebook, type in Chuckie Lawrence, look for his handsome face, send him a friend request, follow him. That's where the information is going out, the flyers and stuff. And then honestly, like every day you get to wake up to like a Chuckie Lawrence cheering you on today, you get fired up message, which is not a bad way to start the day. Chuckie Lawrence, you are a good man.
I appreciate it.
You are a good dude.
And you are too.
Thanks so much for joining me on a Sidewalk Talk.
I thank you.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, you're the man. You're the man. Barbecue, baby. If I can come.